Guys, good evening. How are you this fine Sunday? I'm going to pull up, I guess, some questions from last night. We can start with some of those that I didn't get to. And first of all, I'm sorry for not making a normal 5 p.m. Eastern time slot that I try to do. Had something get in the way of that this evening. So let's see what we got here. I guess I'll start. I don't know if anybody actually ever watches these on Rewind, but to kind of set the tone, as always, I want you to fully realize that you're beautiful, that you're a whole person, and you can do anything you want. So with that, let's begin. I'm going to put a phone number in here. I've mentioned this a few times. And I'm going to try something different that I haven't seen before on Reddit, because that's what's fun about life is, just doing something you haven't done before. I'm going to put a phone number in here. Let's see here. And let's see here if I can get this up correctly. And you guys can give me a call and we'll talk through some stuff. So it'll definitely be different. It will definitely be different. So let me go ahead and stick that in here. And that didn't work. Try it again. All right, call me. Call Dad. And it's off. And just so you understand, this is a SIP phone. It's a disposable phone number. It'll work for the show tonight, and then, if I turn it back on. So, and it's not like one of those things. Well, let's just see what happens, right? It'll be fun. So dad advice number 1: always have fun in life, and have fun doing new things and trying new things, and not being scared of what might happen. But own that if you don't try new things, life will get pretty boring. So, Wolf Spider, I appreciate it, man. I'm really not worried. It's like I said, the way this works, just so you understand, is that, you can sign up for a phone number that basically it's $1, and I have the phone number until I just get rid of it. It's a disposable phone number, right? So, but thank you. I appreciate that. And we got our first call, so let's see what happens. All right, we got a call here. Hello.
Hey.
What would you like to talk about?
Do you think Israel is a legitimate state?
I think it's a good question, but I don't have advice. That's not really an advice question, if that makes sense.
Right.
I think it's a great question, and that a lot of people talk about that. So, thank you for asking it. But I don't know that I can help much from to give any additional clarification to the discussion with that, if that makes sense. All right, and that was that. So, so if there are any advice questions, that might be a better kind of place to go. Then something else. And if you scroll up, if you're just joining, there's a phone number. So let's see what happens. And I might be getting a couple phone calls. I was doing some business today, and so apologize for the phone. I don't even know if you guys can hear it when it rings. I guess you can hear it, but you probably can't see it. So what else? So let's pull up. I'm going to go back to yesterday's stuff. I'll just, that seems to be a good way to know what to talk about, is to talk about what I didn't get to the day before. And let's see what we got here. Some questions we got here. Okay, I like this question. Okay, so here we go. Any advice for setting up a front for money laundering scheme? That was a good question. I'd highly, there's all the Breaking Bad. I think Breaking Bad was a documentary that was out about 7-8 years ago, that actually had some pretty good specific examples, as I remember. So I'd highly recommend that as a way of coming up with some more effective money laundering schemes. That would be my my advice. Just watch that documentary. I think it was called Breaking Bad. All right. And then the other one, why can't I keep the light on the back on? Right. And I get that. That's a fair dad question, right? So your dad's always been telling you, don't leave the light on. And I talked about this the other day. It's the same thing with the thermostat. Why are dads so anal about thermostats? And it's because we work really hard to make money. Really hard. Like, we kind of kill ourselves over it. Literally, some people, moms, dads, literally kill themselves to put food on the table for their kids and give their kids a warm and safe environment. And at the end of the day, electricity costs money. And I think there's two things. First of all, there's, I think, an attitude towards don't waste. But it's also that at the end of the day, we're paying for that electricity. And if it's not being used, then that's maybe 30 seconds of our time that we could be spending with you or someone else we love. So when we're annoyed that the light's on in the back, understand that chances are it's because we love you, which is kind of a weird about way of saying that, but that's kind of where it goes. So now that there are more people here, I'll encourage you at the top note, there is a phone number. I encourage you to give me a call and we can talk through some dad advice and have a little different experience than we normally have on the dad advice session, whatever this is. All right, it looks like I got some questions. So let me go back. I kind of scroll back and forth from one thing to the next. All right, let's see what we got here. What's the best way to go about a 401k? Okay, we can do that. Talk some finance stuff for a little bit, sure. So just let me give some background, to everybody. You make money, you earn money, and the government gives some tax advantageous ways of saving money for retirement, with the idea being that Social Security is probably not going to be enough when you get to retirement age, and so you can put aside some of your money so when you get older, you have more money. And the two major ways of doing that are 401k and an IRA. Those are the two kind of most accessible things. Typically, the 401k is going to be offered by an employer, whereas the IRA is just something you can do yourself. And then there's two types of IRAs, and maybe you've heard of a Roth IRA or a regular IRA. Typically you're going to, but basically they're all three of those things, and they're about 5, 6, 7 different vehicles, right? But those are kind of the most accessible ones for us that we might have an opportunity to spend money on. So the 401k is something that's going to be offered by your employer. And typically they're going to offer you some type of match. They're going to incentivize that, by taking a certain amount of money out of your check every month, we're going to give you maybe 6% of that and match that money. So that's free money, right? That's like getting a 6% raise on your salary if you, take advantage of that. So, so that's going to be an opportunity. I always say, look, you got to save. You have to budget. That's where it starts, right? And part of your budget is savings. And at the age of 20, I hope you're putting the money into, these tax advantageous savings, accounts, because all that money that otherwise would be taxed along the way, or maybe taxed when it's coming out, doesn't get taxed. And for a long time horizon, that can be really beneficial. And I'm always curious, like, I never quite know how much I should really go into detail because some of the stuff could be kind of boring. Feel free to throw some thoughts out there on if I'm just glancing over things in general too much, as opposed to going into more depth. All right. So, all right. I'm one of your long lost sons. I always wondered, right? Somebody knock on the door someday. Hey, Dad. Could be an interesting experience. I'm actually not really wondering because I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be an interesting experience. Help me deal with my date canceling on me at the last minute. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That is pretty not cool of them. I would say something like that, the first thing, so there's different ways to look at this. So so I'm going to attack it from different angles. Okay. So the first thing is, don't assume that she canceled because she's not into you, right? That might be the first thing I would think is, oh, she's not into me, right? She canceled. Maybe really something came up. So be curious. Ask her, hey, what happened? Right? That's in general a good relationship thing. Don't make any assumptions that it's about us. We're typically can be defensive. So don't make that assumption. Ask a question and see what kind of information you get. So that'd be the first thing I would say is, don't take it so personally just yet, right? Because it might not be about you. And then beyond that, I would say she showed her true colors and you just saved yourself potentially a lot of headache down the road. So people will show you who they are in life typically, sometimes not right away, but sometimes right away. In fact, I'll tell you, that reminds me of a great piece of advice I once heard. And I don't remember the lady's name, but she said that, and it's so true, that whatever you tell people you are is what people will assume you are. So when you go into a new environment, right, new job, say, hey, I'd say like, hey, I'm Josh and I'm a real hardworking guy and everyone likes me. And what happens is that now everyone sticks in their head, hey, that's Josh. He's a hardworking guy and everyone likes him. And then all of a sudden that becomes kind of what everyone assumes about you. Now, if you're not a hardworking guy and if these are false, eventually they'll figure it out, but it'll take them longer because in their mind, they've set that this is kind of what that person's about. So just a general great advice. I thought that was like, oh my God, that's like really brilliant. So I'll share that. But back to the original question, either, right, it was something, that, you're going to chat about and you're going to find out that really, there was something behind it that really happened, or it's going to turn out to be for the good. So, and I see that we just had a spike in people and let me share my phone number. If somebody wants to call in, and we're going to try something a little different tonight, the number 470-575-0111. It's posted at the top of the chat here, and I thought we could have a conversation perhaps instead of just me chatting on people's questions. And I'm thinking if there really are 1,000 people tuned in, somebody will call and we can try something a little bit different. All right. So let's see what else we got here. Any survivalist tips? Well, look, I think let's talk about preparedness. We can talk about preparedness. I mean, I don't know if, that's what you're saying specifically about survivalist. I think we have to be careful of paranoia when it comes to survivalist, right? I will tell you that I bought a large bag of rice and a large bag of beans at some point early in the, pandemic discussion before most people were doing that. Because I do think you have to be prepared. But I didn't, go underground. I don't have an underground bunker with stuff. I think that's a little far-fetched. And, frankly, a little far-fetched. I'd say anytime you go into the woods, make sure, and you're going on a hike or something like that, and it's, kind of the wild, which it is, make sure you take with you, just some basic things. Ideally turn your phone on to some type of mapping thing and make sure it's working, because it's really easy to get lost in the woods, especially if that's not something you're so used to. So that'd be the first thing, is just make sure you have some type of mapping tool so you can get yourself out. Take a mirror so you can, try to, whistle. Take a whistle, and a compass, maybe, those would be kind of, take those basic things that you can stick in your pocket, right? And if something happens, you have options, right? And just a recognition that the wilderness is wild. I like to go hiking, and, I think for me, it's kind of a challenge because I'd like to go, by myself, but I'm like, well, there's snakes, and, bears where I like to hike, and is that really safe, for me to go as an individual? So that's not really survivalist tips, but maybe some general tips there. If you go camping and, make sure that your tent isn't in the kind of where the water's gonna, water goes downhill. So make sure you're in a place where if there's rain, you're not going to end up with a bed full of water. Okay. What else we got here? Aloha from Maui. Aloha. Aloha. Actually, I think I was telling, my Maui story the other night, so I'll skip it tonight. Is someone whose dad's in prison. This is awesome to see. Thanks for doing this. My pleasure. I'm sorry your dad's in prison, obviously. It's a lot of fun for me to be able to connect with people online. And frankly, gives me an opportunity to potentially help people, which is meaningful to me. And it also gives me an opportunity to connect with people, which is meaningful to me. So I thank you all for joining. That really, means a lot to me. So, and I can't believe nobody's calling. I was like, this is for sure. People are really going to call, but I guess like people like scared to call. Is that like it's too personal and the internet's supposed to be impersonal? That could be. I could see that. But I thought people were going to be doing that. All right. I need to flip my money tomorrow. What's the best penny stock to do that with? So let's talk about penny stocks. If you're not familiar with them, basically they're stocks you can buy for a penny. And I was talking to my son about this the other day. Here's the problem with penny stocks. Here's the general perspective I want you to understand about the stock market. Is that if you want to gamble, go to Vegas. If you want to gamble, go to Vegas. That's not what the stock market's for. Hey, we got a call. Let's see what happens. You guys ready? Let's see how it goes. Hey, this is Josh.
Hey, I was calling in to do the phone call thing.
Let's do it. It's nice to meet you.
Cool. Yeah, good to meet you too.
Where are you?
I'm over in North Carolina.
Awesome.
What about you?
I love it. I'm in Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Spent a lot of time in Asheville.
Yeah, so you're given. Oh yeah, Asheville's gorgeous. It's kind of going to shit right now though.
Yeah. No, I mean that's definitely like a lot of tourism. I mean that was their whole economy. So it's I'm sure it's really tough for them.
I'm talking about the riots and stuff.
Oh, in terms of that also. Yeah. I mean I saw the picture of the police destroying the water station. I mean like who does that? Yeah. It's a sad time from a certain perspective. Although I think it gives me hope that people are standing up and using their voice, and I just hope they do it safely.
Absolutely, freedom of speech.
Absolutely,
get a lot done. That's what you're doing right now.
That's the hope. That's the hope. You can use speech to touch other people, and then they can use their speech to keep it going out. So what are you thinking about?
So you're giving dad advice, yeah?
Dad advice. That's all I got. That's the only advice I really have to offer, because I'm a dad.
Cool. Okay.
Only thing I'm
okay. You have kids then?
I do. I have 3 kids. They're 15, turning 15 this week, turning 18 this week, turning 19 this week, and 20. So
cool.
Yeah. So
okay.
A little older.
So yeah, I'm asking in reference to a dad advice question I have.
Sure.
Are you religious at all?
Am I religious? It's a good question.
Yeah.
So I
you
would
don't have to answer.
No. It's kind of why I'm here. Is I think that if you can't speak your truths in life, you're in a lot of trouble. So I always try to So the answer is I don't think I'm religious from the Western perspective. But I do think that I'm, religion to me can sometimes just be a kind of a rote thing, or perhaps a belief in kind of a stagnant kind of, I don't mean stagnant like a negative way kind of God, but like, oh, there's God and here's me.
Sure.
So I think I'm religious, but I've created my own ritual, and and then also kind of my deity might be a little bit more broad, which is more of a world perspective of that I personally believe that God, what we kind of consider God has happened is because internally we can sense a certain aspect, a certain truth, which is that everything's united, everything's connected, and so we kind of have externalized that a little bit. So anyway, that was more than you asked, but hopefully gives some perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that we share some thoughts on that. So my folks are. I'm quite a bit. I'm older. I'm 27. My folks are very religious, kind of Southern, not Southern Baptist necessarily, but around there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've met this girl. We've been dating for about 8 months or so. It's going great.
Awesome.
And
Congrats.
she's thinking about moving in. And this will be the first time that I've had, a spouse live with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hesitating talking to my parents about it because I know they're going to have a lot of insight into it.
You mean
so
insight into why it's a bad idea? You're saying.
Exactly.
Right.
I was wondering from as someone that has kids, what could I say to make them feel more comfortable about it?
Sure. First of all, it's kind of you to really want them to be comfortable with your decision. Not all kids do that, so kudos to you for that. That's pretty awesome. I have to ask. I would assume this has happened before. Not this particular thing of kind of a partner moving in, but other things where your parents kind of feel a certain way about things, and you're kind of like, well, this isn't the path I'm taking. Or is this really the first time?
No. We've had some pretty intense discussions about things, that they disagree with, and in the past, it kind of went to shit. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty tough time for our family,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm just trying to avoid that
again
this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's tough. And I have a lot of familiarity with the religious world. So I was part of a pretty, what I would consider a kind of Western, kind of religious, strict religious environment for a good part of my life. So I have some familiarity around that. And obviously it's tough when, you want to be respectful, and to some extent they really think you're going to hell, right?
Absolutely.
And
the idea.
So right, and again, I don't know if I'll end up with any advice here, but just I'll share some perspectives that maybe you haven't realized that your parents are thinking from. If they're true believers, then they really think you're going to hell. And that's a pretty hard thing for a parent to think that their kid is going to hell, right? The other thing is that there's embarrassment from the parents, right? So the parents often see their kids as an offshoot of themselves, which they shouldn't, but they do.
Sure.
And so it's a personal embarrassment. And the last thing we want, right? I think we can all agree, is that I guess I can, instead of looking at the phone, I can look at the camera. The last thing that we want, and I think this is, let me take a kind of sidestep and talk about embarrassment for a minute, because I think if we really think about what a lot of our fears are in life, it's some aspect of being fearful of embarrassment. So anyway, maybe we can come back to that later if you guys remind me. But but specific to this, just understanding that they have a church environment where kids are growing up in a certain way of their friends, and you're not doing that, and that's embarrassing to them. The other thing,
I've never considered that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. The other thing to kind of, because the more you can put yourself in their shoes, at least you can understand, and have compassion for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even if they can't have compassion for you, and then we can talk about maybe some ways to navigate some of that. But some other perspectives from the parents, perspective, embarrassment, is disappointment, right? And again, that's a burden to hear as a kid, perhaps, right? And that's something in general you should probably take a moment to really reflect for yourself on, right? Do you feel that you disappointed them, and what do you want to do about that, right? Because how do we handle parents that are disappointed? So a lot of us are people pleasers, right? We did what our parents said to do something, and so we did it, and and so then they molded us, and then perhaps we didn't take their path, especially like something where there's like a real path, right?
Yeah.
And so there's some real feelings of disappointment, and it gets even deeper. Sometimes they even though they might be religious, they still wish they were not religious sometimes. So it can be all these like weird twisted emotions. So I guess the only point really to say is that there can be a lot of really challenging thought processes in your parents' head. So so how would I approach it? So the relationship now is good?
With my folks?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's we've made efforts to try to repair the volcano eruption of the last fight we had, which was a few years ago, but it was quite intense. So it's mending right now, I'd say. Okay.
Do you think that whatever that last topic was, this time around, meaning did they come to kind of terms with some of this stuff that, this is my son, he's doing his thing now? I
think so. I think they realize that I'm an adult now.
Okay.
Which is understandably, kind of a bridge to cross.
Right. So then chances are you've gotten past 80% of it, in if that makes sense. So I think even just approaching them and saying, hey, look, I want to be able to tell you stuff. And this is how I'd approach it. Is say, I want to be able to tell you stuff, but I don't want it to ruin our relationship. So I don't know what to do. Yeah. And say, what do you want me to do? Do you want to, do you want me to kind of keep it to myself? Because then you're not keeping it to yourself, right? Because what you don't want to do is to be going in and pretending that person doesn't exist in your life when you're, or that, this is my girlfriend, and then pretending you want to be truthful, right? So you don't want to be pretending that she's not living with you. So you can say,
I don't want that.
So give them the choice. I like that. I like the idea of really saying to them, Mom, Dad, I love you. I value our relationship, and I don't know how to handle this. There's some, I don't want to keep things from you, but I also don't want to hurt you. So what would you prefer? And let them make that decision for themselves.
Oh yeah, man. That's fantastic advice.
Cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Take care.
Be well. Bye-bye. Cool. Hey, it worked. That was cool. I enjoyed that. All right. Let's see what else I got here. As someone whose dad's in prison, is awesome to see. Thank you for doing this. I think that's where I left off. Oh, but something came up there. We were talking about in this last conversation. I was going to come back to. I don't remember what it was now. Sorry. Oh, we were talking about penny stocks. Oh, so look, let me just be wary of penny stocks. I don't know if what was the movie. There's a movie. Someone can throw in the comments. It's called a pump and dump scheme. Right? So here's how it works. I say, hey guys, go out and buy ABC company. It's only a cent. And watch what happens to it. It's going to explode tomorrow. Right? And, and I go and I tell that to 100 people, and they all buy $1 worth, right? Of that penny stock. And it moves the stock price, moves it up, and it goes up. And then all those guys, they go and they tell their friends, hey, I bought this stock at a penny. It's 2 cents, but hey, it's going up. It's going up. And all their friends buy. It goes up to 4 cents, 8 cents, 16 cents. And then what happens is the guys who first got in, they sell the stock, and it tanks. And everybody kind of after them gets left holding the bag. So it's called a pump and dump scheme. Happens around penny stocks. It's, look, so that's my advice. Don't buy penny stocks. In general, I'd advise not to buy individual stocks. I think we think we're smarter than average when in fact we are average. We're all average. In general, my general advice is, buy index funds, do not sell them, just hold them for 30, 40, 50 years, That's the play. It's that easy. You don't have to complicate life. That's the weird thing about life is we overly complicate everything, but we don't have to do that. And this is one of those things where it's like, it's easy. It's that easy. All right. I'm just kind of scrolling through some of these. Some of these are like, I don't know if I can really. What's some dad advice to forget a girl or someone I once liked? That's hard, huh? It's hard to lose a relationship, to lose someone you love. So I'd say that can happen one of two ways. One is that you get dumped, and that's going to be one story. So let's go on that, on the you get dumped side, and then we'll talk about, when you decided that it wasn't practical either together or, you yourself made that decision. So the problem, obviously, when someone dumps you is that you take it personally. So it's not just that there's the pain from that person not being in your life anymore, but there's a control aspect. There's a personal aspect and a control aspect. You didn't have control in that decision. The decision was made for you. And so when that happens, obviously, it's a much harder situation. Because it's like some aspect of, we want control in this world. A lot of what we do is in this world is to create a feeling that we have control. We still don't have control, but we try to pretend that we have control. And so when things happen to us that we can't control, it creates an emotional scar that's deeper than, that same time where you stopped the relationship and you had that control. So it's a much deeper hurt. So the first thing to tell you, is just that understand that if you get dumped, there's more things at play. It's not just about her. Understand what your ego part in that hurt is. The other thing I would say is, you don't want to forget the girl. You might want to forget the girl, but you don't want to forget the girl. And that's because that every person that enters our life, is somewhat a part of our path through life. And remembering the good and learning lessons for the future are key so you don't make the same mistakes again. So I'm just playing on your word forget. I know what you meant. But the main advice here would be that time takes time. That's what my friend said. I think it's brilliant. Time takes time. And there's nothing you can do to rush time. That the way our mind works is that over time, the memory kind of, all the details get a little less vivid, and you can heal. So just understand, be able to speak to your future self and understand that whatever pain that you feel, it's temporary and it's going to pass. And just having that knowledge that the pain will pass, is helpful. Look, everyone will give you the general advice is go find someone else. That's the easy answer, right? I don't know if it's true in a way too. It's true in a way too. So, so those would be it. Time, get someone else. What else? And also, you said actually I once liked, I don't know if you ever dated. And if you never really dated that person, you actually don't really know what they were about. And this is a key thing, is that you can create a lot of imagery of what a person's all about, what a person's like. And that's even early in a relationship. I mean, we were just talking about this guy who's been in a relationship for 8 months. That's early, right? You don't really know a person till 3 years, by then there's really some really good knowledge of you have a lot of information by a year, right? 4 seasons of life, it's kind of the standard thing that people say, but it takes time to really, really know and understand a person. So the other thing, just to put out there is that when we're first meeting somebody, oftentimes we're meeting our image of them. And that image is a pedestal. It's a creation that we make. It's not real. So, I just throw out there that, in your mind, she might be the most amazing person in the world. And especially if you just dated a couple months. But just understand that as you got to know that person, there's a pretty high probability that you might have walked away and said, oh, you know what? This person isn't all, that I thought she was. And that can give you a little bit of a peace in the heart. So hopefully some of that's helpful. Let's see, what else I got here? And if anybody else wants to call, the number's at the top there of the chat. We can do another talk. Did you guys like that? Can you throw that in? Like, was that cool? Was that like boring? Cool? I don't know. But let me know. And if you don't mind, say, phone was cool or phone was stupid. Because otherwise, like, by the time I get to the end of the chat, it's like afterwards and I don't really know what we're talking about. Okay. Should I take a risk and go for a zoology career despite it being hard to get employed in the field, or should I play it safe? It's a good question. That is a good question. I can't answer that question for you. I can't. What are some thoughts that I can give you around that? And that's the one thing, just to throw that out to everybody. Let's talk about advice. The goal with advice is to get ideas, bring them in, from multiple places, and then form your own decision. Never take anyone's advice, meaning even straight up, don't take anyone's advice. It's got to be your own advice. You got to come to it on your own. So zoology and taking the risk. I think that's one of those things where you got to kind of look in your heart, right, in your gut, and well, I guess the first thing I would ask is, and I just don't know enough, right, to really advise on this. I mean, but the first question, here are the questions I would ask: is there an in between, right? Do we have to assume it's this or that? Like, could you do a zoology major, with an idea of turning that into being a doctor? Or, or doing a minor in, psychiatry or something like that, so you can kind of build on what you have. And if it doesn't work out, you can pivot. So I don't know what your playing it safe would be, right? Because to me, I would think that, with the degree in zoology, you should have some options. So that would be just the initial thought there is, but in general, would hope that everybody understands that when they're making decisions, to try to not look at it as black and white. It's called black and white thinking. We all do it, right? We all do it. There's a great example, right? We don't all do it. I'm sure there's some people that don't do it, right? So find the middle ground. Is there something that allows us to go a little bit of each, a compromise that we can use? All right. Eddie's Ladder, thank you very much for the kind compliments. I appreciate that. I appreciate the gold, I guess, and the snoo. I don't know what that is yet, I guess, as we get down. I'm like, there's like 160 messages till I kind of get down there, but that's cool. Thank you. Thank you both very much. Advice on how to get a girlfriend when you're an introvert. Well, it's much the same advice I would give to an extrovert. which is you got to ask. And you're saying, well, I'm an introvert. So first of all, let's differentiate between shyness, and introversion. And let's also take a moment to not label ourselves as an introvert, but understand that we're on a spectrum of introvert to extrovert. I think it's important we don't label ourselves, no matter what it is, because then that's what we are. And that's not what we are. We're much more than any labels. And we've talked about some of that before. So I think this is more an issue of being shy than being introverted. I mean, if introverts go, well, hey, I don't want to go out and meet people, right? So if that's kind of what you're saying. I don't think you have to just go out and meet people. You can go online and, to meet up for drinks, and it doesn't have to be, to me, introverted is, and I'm kind of an introvert, at times. So, especially in fact, I would say I'm an introvert when I don't really know anybody in the room, right? So I think as an introvert, I don't hear the question. If it's just a question of, hey, I'm shy, how do I meet people? I think that's just social anxiety that you can spend some time working on with a therapist. I'm a big proponent of therapy to help you excel in life. We all need help getting out of our stuck places in life sometimes. And that's what a great therapist can do for us. So, I'd highly recommend, finding, and maybe look for an anxiety therapist, who specializes in anxiety, and because they have tools. I have found a lot of value from cognitive-based therapy, CBT, I think is what it's called, where they give you tools. I don't quite remember what they are anymore. I should probably, re-up them myself, but on how to deal with anxiety. And they're actually tools, which is really cool that, to consider that there are ways that we can change our thinking that can make us less anxious. And a lot has to do just paying attention to the thoughts and then asking if those are really true or we really need to worry about them, or recognizing that we can do anything, right? And that goes back to what I started out with, is that really once you can do anything, then, there's no fear, right? Because you can do anything. Yeah, you're saying, yeah, but there's fear, Josh. There's fear. But the reality is that you can surpass that. All right. How to make the best dad jokes. It's so interesting. When I was growing up, there wasn't really a thing as a dad joke. I don't think. That's like the internet culture's thing, that they've created. I just don't, look, dads made jokes, but it wasn't like a thing. Right? And everything's a thing, which is kind of interesting that society's done that. But I think that to make the best dad jokes, you just have to be the best dad. Or the dad with the worst sense of humor, I guess. All right. Ridiculous, thank you. I'm glad that you found that helpful. Should I keep my children away from both U.S. president candidates? Isn't it sad? Right. And we know this, right? This is, in general, right? It's always like, who's like the least worst candidate? And it's always, and it's historical, right? I mean, it's not like this is new. This has been going on for thousands of years, literally, since people in power just kind of, it takes a certain person. Here's the thing. It takes a certain egotistical person to be able to stand up and say, vote for me, and not listen to all the naysayers, right? So it's just already this natural kind of ego. And then it's really sad. It's sad that the right people aren't the people running for, sorry, get rid of that text, aren't the people who are running for office. But at the end of the day, we do get to vote for them. And let's educate the people in our environment about, and really advocate for the people that can create change that we want to see. That's the power we do have. And remember, and this is an important thing to remember, that, there are two candidates running right now, but we chose those candidates in a way. So I don't care, you chose one of them, right? And it's a hard thing to hear, but I think it's honest. I think we have to be honest with ourselves, is that, just like, and you're like, well, I didn't choose that person. But, to some extent, when you're part of a group, the actions of that group are your responsibility, or, come from your actions. And if you think about it, I think you'll find it true. But either way, I definitely hear what you're saying, in terms of, yeah. All right. Phone number here. Yeah, I just got it. Phone number is 470-575-0111. Let's see what else I got. And that's at the top of the page here. What else can't really help with how to study for the SAT. Where do stork's babies come from? Oh, people bring them. Yeah, that's stork's babies come from people. That's the old stork tale. And that's how it works. That a person, actually, it's basically a person comes in a UPS driver uniform, and they drop them off on the front porch. And that's what the storks tell their babies. Talk about video games. What if I told you that there could be a point in your life that you're no longer interested in playing video games? It'd be pretty mind-blowing for a lot of you, I think. Yeah. Isn't that an interesting idea, that there can be things that we're so into at one point in our life, and video games was one for me. I was playing Duke Nukem, and I had this kick-ass stereo system in the dorms, and nobody had it. Like, everybody had like a little boombox in ours, but I had like real speakers that were decent sizes, and in Duke Nukem you had just a kick-ass shotgun, and there's a lot of time. I've spent many hours playing video games in my life, and from Zelda, I guess Zelda, and Atari before that. Let's see, it was Atari to Sega Genesis to Nintendo, and then kind of skipped to computers. But and even recently, I'd say as young as or old as 33, 34, still played a lot of games. I think I have a PS4 now, which I bought recently because I was like, well, maybe I'll get back into it. But somewhere in the beginning of God of War. But my PS3 I bought probably when it first came out, and I played a lot on it, and and I loved it. A lot of Tom Clancy, and had a lot of fun with it. But at some point, they didn't do it for me anymore, which is a crazy thought. That something that you can be so into in life, they change. And I think that's important to know at your age, because there are a lot of things that you're saying to yourself, this is how it's always going to be, both good and bad. And recognizing that that's not how it's always going to be. Things change. You change. So I got 50 seconds left. If you don't mind, if this was helpful for you, please put thank you in the comments, because that inspires me to show back up here again tomorrow at 5. Oh, actually, I can't do tomorrow. At 5. I'll do tomorrow night. Probably around 9 Eastern tomorrow night. Let me see. Now that I have 50 seconds left, I'll throw out an exact time. Yeah, I'm going to say 9:30 tomorrow night. I will show up here and do this again, 9:30 Eastern Standard. But I will leave you with the message that, I always like to leave you with, which is that you're beautiful, that you're a whole person, and that you can do anything that you want. So go out and do that, and appreciate the moment and the life that you've been given to live, and go make a difference in the world, because only you can do what you can do, whatever that is. Might be small, might be big, Doesn't matter. But you do you. Cheers.